Good evening. It's Saturday, the 25th of April. You're tuned in to our 6 p.m. newscast coming to you from Arirang's news centre in Seoul. It's very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broome. And we start here in Korea, where campaigning for Wednesday's crunch by-elections is in full swing. The ruling Saenuri Party has been focusing most of its attention this Saturday on 3 of the 4 constituencies up for grabs, namely Seoul's Gwanak-B district, Incheon and Gyeonggi-do Province. The party's leader, Kim Moo-sung, has spent the entire day in Seongnam in Gyeonggi-do Province looking to drum up support. The leader of the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy, Moon Jae-in, has been busy mingling with voters in the hotly contested Gwanak-B district, and the party's floor leader has been in the southwestern city of Gwangju, both areas which have long been liberal strongholds. Now, on a related note, a 2-day early voting period aimed at raising voter turnout by giving those who are unable to vote on the actual day of the elections extra time to cast their ballots ended just a few moments ago at 6 p.m. Korea time. The by-elections will select 4 National Assembly members and some local councillors whose terms will last until the general elections set for next April. President Park Geun-hye, who's been touring South America since last week, has touched down in her final stop, Sao Paulo. Earlier, in the Brazilian capital, she held talks with President Dilma Rousseff, where the 2 leaders discussed ways to enhance their country's cooperative partnership. Our Chae-sun, who's travelling with the president, filed this report from Sao Paulo.
Brazil is home to the world's 5th largest population of 200 million, and its pharmaceutical and medical equipment markets rank in the world's top 10 by size. But the country has a severe shortage of medical personnel and services. Like with the previous 3 countries President Park visited on this tour, Korea signed a pact with Brazil to cooperate in telemedicine, pharmaceuticals, and medical equipment. The 2 sides will co-develop a smart hospital vessel to offer telemedical services to Brazilians in remote places like in the basin of the Amazon River.
양국 간 ICT, 보건, 의료 등 여러 분야의 MOU가 체결된 것은 뜻깊은 진전이라고 생각합니다.
Out of dozens of deals Korea signed with Brazil on Friday, several of them were made with the hope of providing young Koreans with job opportunities in Brazil as it tries to diversify its industries. Korea will pass down its know-how from winning the International World Skills Competition 18 times ahead of Brazil hosting the event this year. This is aimed at helping Korea's young skilled workers find jobs in Brazil and the region's manufacturing, ICT, and healthcare sectors. Korea will also open its 8th Overseas Employment Support Center in Brazil, the first of its kind in Central and South America. After the first sale of its creative economy model to Saudi Arabia, Korea secured a second deal with Brazil. Samsung is also investing $5 million in an innovation center in Brazil to assist young entrepreneurs from both countries. President Park is now in Brazil's largest city of Sao Paulo, also home to the largest Korean community in South America. On the final day of a regional tour, she plans to meet and encourage Koreans residing here and attend a special event combining K-pop performance with a fashion show. Chae-sun, Arirang News, Sao Paulo.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, set to give a speech to the US Congress next week, is reportedly taking some cues from his grandfather, who gave a similar speech to the US House when he was Japan's Prime Minister in the late 1950s. International pressure is mounting on Abe to offer a sincere apology for his country's actions during World War II. But if his grandfather's speech was anything to go by, the world shouldn't hold its breath. Park Ji-won has more.
With only a matter of days remaining before Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe addresses a joint session of U.S. Congress next Wednesday, the Japanese leader is reportedly putting the finishing touches to his message by referencing former Prime Minister Nobusuke Kishi's speech to the House in 1957. The Japanese daily Yomiuri Shimbun reported Saturday that Abe is making final adjustments to his speech by listening to an audio file of the speech given by the former prime minister, who was also Abe's grandfather and who was once accused by the United States of being a Class A war criminal. During a speech to U.S. Congress, Kishi thanked the U.S. for helping Japan to rebuild in the years after the war and expressed support for Washington's anti-communist stance. He also vowed to boost Japan-U.S. relations by rejecting communism, but notably, Kishi made no apology for Japan's actions during World War II. Considering that Kishi is Abe's political mentor, media outlets expect Abe to stress the importance of strengthening the Japan-U.S. alliance and tout Tokyo's role in supporting Washington's current concerns, such as the fight against terrorism and the containment of China. This comes as a recent report by the U.S. Congressional Research Service pointed out that the world will be closely watching what Abe's perspectives on history are. Japan's public broadcaster NHK says the report explains how Abe has stirred regional tensions over historical issues and notes that it puts more pressure on him to include a message of historic reconciliation in his speech. U.S. Congressman Mike Honda has also urged the Japanese leader to accept Japan's responsibility for wartime sexual enslavement if he wants Japan to be a true leader in the democratic world. In an interview with Japanese dailies Hankei Shimbun, Honda, an 8-term lawmaker of Japanese descent, said it was high time for Abe to show genuine remorse and apologize. Honda was one of 25 U.S. House members who issued a joint letter this week urging Abe to reaffirm the Japanese government's past apologies for the sake of reconciliation with its neighbors. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
North Korea is reportedly tightening the screw on international human rights organisations operating inside the country. An official from an aid group, who asked not to be named, told Radio Free Asia that North Korea's meddling in their operations has never been as bad as it is now. Groups with connections to the European Union are said to be the most affected, as Pyongyang feels the EU has been behind most of the attempts at the United Nations to punish the regime for its human rights abuses. The source also says North Korean officials have been intensifying a crackdown to prevent human rights organisations contacting Western media outlets about the situation in the country. A former US negotiator has warned that it will take a number of years to see whether South Korea's revised nuclear cooperation agreement with the United States will be a good deal for Seoul. Robert Einhorn, former special advisor for non-proliferation and arms control at the US State Department, says there are a number of factors Korea needs to consider, including the hefty costs and whether there is enough need for it to produce its own enriched uranium fuel. Einhorn's remarks come a matter of days after Seoul and Washington revised their 1974 Nuclear Energy Cooperation Agreement after more than 4 years of negotiations. The revised deal allows South Korea to conduct research into a new technology for recycling spent nuclear fuel known as pyroprocessing and to make low-level enriched uranium with Washington's consent. Korea is pinning its hopes on becoming a major player in the global nuclear reactor market, and it seems the nation might be onto a winner with the development of a new, safer reactor that it hopes to export to mid-sized markets around the world. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
Korea has successfully developed a small to mid-sized nuclear reactor dubbed System Integrated Modular Advanced Reactor, or SMART. The new reactor contains all the major components in a single container. But its developers say the biggest benefit is the lack of any pipes, which are usually the most problematic aspects for a reactor. The SMART reactor has passed most of its major safety tests, with just a handful of minor tests remaining.
The SMART reactor is extremely safe and contains all the sufficient functionality.
Korea is now a pioneer of the mid-sized reactor industry, but the benefits don't end there, as Korea will be able to share its expertise around the world.
We believe it will be a popular item. The reactor is more economical and it's small. Not all countries need large reactors.
Starting with Saudi Arabia, SMART is expected to be exported to other Middle Eastern countries, and developing nations around the world.
We will produce around 200 smart reactors. Looking at it from an international and economic perspective, we have a great product here.
SMART uses 1/10 of the energy of a large reactor and could provide electricity to around 10,000 people. Kim Moo-sung, Arirang News.
Anti-terror police in Italy believe they have foiled a plot to attack the Vatican. A series of raids focused on mainland Italy and the island of Sardinia targeted Islamic extremists who may have ties to Al-Qaeda. Among the 18 people who were targeted, 2 are said to have been the personal bodyguards of Osama bin Laden. As unspecified number of Pakistani and Afghan nationals were arrested, but others are believed to have fled the country. Police say they have reason to believe the suspects were planning to attack Vatican City, but no specific threat was made against the Pope. They also say the group was planning to carry out attacks in Afghanistan and Pakistan. The authorities added that the evidence against the suspects was mainly gleaned from telephone intercepts and wiretaps. Now, before we go, taking a brief look at the weather in Korea, and we can expect more of the glorious spring weather we saw today on Sunday. The entire country will be under brilliant blue skies, and we'll see the daytime highs in the mid to upper 20s nationwide. And we'll see similar conditions for the entirety of next week as well. Now, for our viewers overseas, let's take a look at the weather in your part of the world. Well, that's all we have for now. Do enjoy the rest of your Saturday, wherever you're watching us, and do stay tuned to Arirang TV. We'll be back again with our next newscast at 10 p.m. Korea time. Until then, goodbye.